Okay, and more people are joining. And let me see. We'll be starting live on Facebook. Just a moment.
Kim, is there any suggested way that we can automatically connect to your Facebook and share it live on our Facebook pages, or no?
You could go to Building Unity on Facebook if you wanted, and do it that way. Well, I'm going to try to multitask here, let people in. I should have gotten some more help, but we'll see what we can do here. Welcome, good people of Wisconsin. We are now Facebooking live a virtual press conference for the Coalition for a Just Wisconsin Budget, our very first press conference. And I got to say, I'm an amateur at this. I, got on Zoom this year for the first time as part of, well, I guess I've been on Zoom before, but I wasn't a very good user. It was a novelty when I got on Zoom. So as for many of us with this pandemic, I've become somewhat of a novice at it. And this is my first attempt at doing a press conference, hosting it, facilitating it, and running the Zoom. Maybe it's a mistake, but we'll see. We are joined here by many of our supporters for the Coalition for a Just Wisconsin Budget. Some of these supporters are not necessarily able to sign on. They maybe have to take it to their boards first. We're moving fast. Some groups can't sign on to all 6 areas, but we are having our press conference and I welcome you to that today. Whether you can sign on to one section or whether you can sign on to all 6 areas, we appreciate your help. I want to just acknowledge that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, organizations like Kids Forward, which I don't know if they can sign on to this document officially yet, but their work with the budget project is what we use to do our research as to what would make a justice budget. And we're so honored to have Tamarine Cornelius from that project here with us today. The justice work of groups like the Wisconsin Public Education Network or the NAACP, groups like the ACLU and Wisdom. The list is many. I'm listing some of the groups that have helped us that we've pulled resources from. And like I said, they're not necessarily official members, but they've been very generous with their time, their energy, and their expertise. Some of these groups have signed on as coalition members, and we'll be sending our call to the governor later tomorrow, actually. We couldn't get into the Capitol today. It's all closed up for COVID reasons, but there is going to be a hearing tomorrow. I guess the powers that be are wanting to strip the governor of some of his COVID safety powers. So if anybody knows more about that and wants to report on that, you can when you have the chance. But here's a list of some of the names of our early signers or people who have helped us. Like I said, not all of these people are able to sign on or have signed on, but there are just a few, and we'll be compiling a list, and that list we hope will grow into the tens of thousands by the time the governor announces his budget in mid-February. I'm sorry, my mouse has decided to die. So fortunately, all right. Here are the areas of the just budget that I want you just to get a look at. We're calling for funding for health and safety, above all to expand Medicaid and to bring those federal dollars into Wisconsin where they can be used to increase healthcare for all people. Worker justice that centers around living wage and benefits for families and for sick leave and things like that. Also, we want undocumented residents to have the same protections as workers. They are our neighbors. They are building our, our economy and support and contributing in every way. They should have the protections, and graduates from Wisconsin schools should get in-state tuition. The criminal justice reform, we need to close a couple of outdated, inhumane prisons and divert those savings to community support in communities that have been most effective. We need to definitely close Copper Lake and Lincoln Hills juvenile facilities. We need youth to be 17 and under to be in the youth system and in community programs that are trauma-informed and, compassionately run. We think a lot of this can be funded by legalizing and taxing marijuana. Climate and the environment can't wait. We have a serious climate crisis that has to be dealt with in the next few years. And of course, we are nowhere without public education. So we need to fund public education and not put that demand on property taxes, but really fund it at the state level in a bigger way. So other resources that I will put into the chat when I have a minute. We've created a budget calendar that's just getting started. In fact, this press conference is the last item on it. So as more events are created, we will add them to the calendar. There's a copy of the link to our call, and then how you can sign on, how you can get updates. And if you want to correspond with us, you can write to Mary K. Baum, who you'll get a chance to hear from later, and or call me, and that I will post that in the chat. And lastly, I just want to say before we get started that we will be having our next press conference on Thursday, February 4th. We're going forth for the people on February 4th with a 1:30 press conference. And if you're interested in speaking or testifying at that press conference, or you want to nominate someone, please let us know. So without further ado, I'm going to leave the screen share stop sharing my screen. Oops. I'm still trying to use that mouse that happened to die. All right. So let me get back to my notes here. I'm going to introduce our first speaker is Ben Wilson. He is an organizer working with the Southwest Wisconsin, representing the Citizen Action of Wisconsin. Ben, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you for bringing me on today. As Tim mentioned, my name is Ben Wilson. I am the Driftless Region Co-op organizer with Citizen Action of Wisconsin. I represent about 3,000 activists across Southwest Wisconsin. We focus on issues related to climate, healthcare, and supporting, developing, and expanding our rural communities. Rural climate and healthcare are what we work on, but as we all know, progressive issues are all intersectional. Everything plays into everything else. And to create real change, we need to address change on every front. That's why the Driftless Region Co-op of Citizen Action Wisconsin would like to sign on in favor of the just budget. We believe that strong action is needed now, both to build our state back up after it's been ravaged by COVID and to place us in good footing for the future. We need to address the climate crisis. We need to address underlying issues that have been going on in Wisconsin for decades. We need to pass legalize marijuana and tax it so that we have extra revenue coming into the state budget. We need to do all these things now. America and Wisconsin specifically are at a crossroads. And that's why we at Citizen Action Wisconsin Driftless Co-op are so in favor of the just budget. I'd like to thank you all for coming on today. Thank you all for your support. And we look forward to working with you to pass a people's budget that works for the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate your wise words. And next, I'd like to call to the podium Mike McCabe. Most of you know Mike. He's the executive director of our Wisconsin Revolution. And previously, he led the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign as its executive director for 15 years. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Tim. And hey, everybody. Mike McCabe with our Wisconsin Revolution here. It's my pleasure to put our support behind this initiative to advance a budget that is just and addresses the critical issues facing Wisconsin. I've been happy to be a part of the conversation and part of the this effort to pull groups together to offer ideas jointly. Happy to offer our support. We are in a position now as a state where we face some really mammoth challenges going forward. And you know, we're facing at least four emergencies simultaneously: growing economic inequality, social and racial injustice, also health insecurity, and particularly in the midst of a pandemic. And then finally, environmental insanity. These are four mammoth challenges. They're not unique to Wisconsin. These are four national challenges, and some of them are emergencies that really are global emergencies, but they affect our state, and they affect our state in a big way. But you know, given the current landscape, given the way that things are working at the state capitol nowadays, the budget is a unique opportunity, maybe our only opportunity, to really make some gains and get some progress for our state. When you think about it, the governor has called the legislature into special session 7 times, and 7 times the legislators have gavelled in the session and then gavelled out without acting. No meaningful legislation has come of any of those special sessions. The Republicans who control the legislature seem bound and determined not to pass any legislation that the governor would want. The governor, of course, can veto any legislation that the Republicans pass. They don't have the supermajorities needed to override his vetoes. So that leaves Wisconsin in a really precarious position of facing these 4 emergencies, mammoth challenges that will hold our state back, and yet without a clear path forward to making some progress on those issues. That's where the state budget process becomes so critical. The budget is the one and only bill that has to pass every 2 years, and a new one needs to get enacted this year. The governor will make his request next month, then the legislature will take it from there. We have been, at our Wisconsin Revolution, trying to communicate with the governor since late November, urging him to think bigger and act more boldly than he did in the first go around with his budget proposal, and also asking him to employ a very aggressive negotiating strategy that can compel legislators to bargain in good faith with him. The fact that the budget is the one and only bill that has to pass every session, that makes it so very important that we get as many things in this budget as we possibly can that will help Wisconsin move forward and help our state begin to tackle these mammoth challenges that we face. You know, when you look at the coming legislative session, it's really hard to see, given the politics at the Capitol that are playing out, where we can make progress as a state, if not in the state budget process. So it's encouraging to us to see so many groups zeroing in on the state budget process and acknowledging just how critical it is for us to be impactful when it comes to advocacy regarding the state budget. And it's really encouraging to see so many groups coming together and saying, these are the kinds of things that we want to see in the budget. These are the kinds of advances that we want to see made for our state. We're happy to join in that. And we'll continue to push the governor to be ambitious and to think big and act boldly with his budget request. And then we will continue to advocate joining together with all these groups as the budget process moves to the legislature, urging those lawmakers, again, to tackle those four major emergencies facing our state: economic inequality, social and racial injustice, health insecurity, and environmental insanity. Those are the things that need to get addressed for Wisconsin to move forward and for us to make this state the kind of place that we all want it to be. Thanks so much for being a part of this initiative. I'm proud to join with all of you in pushing for positive change through the state budget process.
Thank you, Mike McCabe. Next, we will hear from someone who's no stranger to the budget process. Tamarine Cornelius is from the Wisconsin Budget Project, and that's a project of Kids Forward, which focuses on expanding opportunity for every child, every family, and every community. Thank you for being with us today, Tamarine.
Thanks, Tim. This budget agenda can be the first step towards creating a new economy and responding to the challenges of the pandemic, the recession, and racial injustice. Even before the pandemic, economic gains were not being broadly shared. As the stock market climbed and the top 1% saw their net worth skyrocket, the booming economy was based in part on stripping investments out of communities of color and transferring those resources to the extremely wealthy. And the economy was structured in a way that benefited a select few while blocking people of color from traditional pathways of building wealth. So we shouldn't try to go back to what we've lost before the pandemic, because doing so would be buying back into a deeply inequitable system. Instead, we need to build a new economy, one that makes sure that everyone has the opportunity to climb the economic ladder and make a better life for themselves, one that tackles the enormous gaps in well-being among people of different races, gaps that hold everybody back. Wisconsin's motto is forward, which reflects the state's longstanding desire to be a national leader. And we can be a national leader as a state where families do not struggle to put food on the table and to provide for themselves. This budget can be a first step towards creating that new economy and making sure that everyone in Wisconsin is valued, able to provide for their family, and to be able to contribute to their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamarine. And thank you for your decades of hard work towards making the budget a tool, a moral document, which we really got it. We need a people's uprising now to make sure that the budget is a moral document. Next, we will hear from someone who's been fighting for the environment in for many decades. Don Ferber is a longtime environmental advocate who has especially been involved with the Sierra Club and with 350 Madison. He's a dedicated activist on climate change and clean energy issues, and he's now dedicating time to bringing climate and other justice for all. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Tim, and it's great to be with you and join everybody else in advocating for a just budget that's so badly needed in Wisconsin. I want to point out that climate change and the environment are important and really critical for so many reasons in Wisconsin. That so much of what we value here is dependent upon these issues that have been shown to have disparate and inequitable impacts, unfortunately. We're known for our outdoor recreation opportunities. Those are being threatened by what's going on, by both the pollution and climate change. We are a heavily agricultural state where flooding, droughts, and heat are increasingly disruptive and are threatening our food systems and our very farmers and our rural way of life out here. And our polluted waters are especially harming early childhood development and people's lives, and increase our healthcare costs at a time when we're trying to lower them. And one of the best ways we could lower our healthcare costs is actually rid ourselves of a lot of this toxic pollution. But the good news is that with this budget, we can make some of the changes that we need that will also help our economy and our people, but we have to do this in a just way and make sure that what's happening here serves everybody. So there are really three primary areas we're trying to focus on for a just climate and energy budget. One is energy itself. And And that is the governor put together a task force on climate change that has a lot of great recommendations there. And we want most of those supported, but also, we can reach 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035. And it will help our economy. The clean energy is now cheaper than most of the fossil fuel energy. And it is really the way to go that will help our workers and our economy and provide for a cleaner energy future for everybody. And, through various state programs and like the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, we can, help prioritize projects that will actually lower our energy use. So we want to support all that. One thing we want to point out with transportation is the governor they have already voted and allocated $1 billion for an expansion of the I-94 project in Milwaukee. It is larger than any other single item in the budget. And if we would eliminate this, we could use this to do so much that we need, because this is a project that increases inequity in Milwaukee and has been separating communities and harming especially communities of color with the pollution. So it's time to get rid of that project and do things that will help us and provide more clean energy and more transportation options for everybody. And finally, in the environmental arena, we know that we want to protect our lands, and we have the stewardship program that needs renewing to protect what we value and attract people to Wisconsin and to our wonderful resources we have here. But we have so many water pollution problems. PFAS has become a huge issue that people are aware of, and we don't even know how much trouble it's causing, but we really need to do something about that. And of course, the lead in water pipes, where it's harming children early on, and then they're victims of that throughout their life, and then we don't support them later on when that help is needed. We're taking action at the federal government level with a new administration that's trying to deal with many of these issues, and especially climate change. We can do that here and make a lot of progress for people in this state and reduce a lot of the harms that are happening and provide more equity and justice for everybody, through climate change and the environment. So it's great to be here with everybody else, supporting all the things that are necessary to provide a just budget and help the residents of our state move forward in an equitable manner. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Don. All right, let's have an uprising, huh? Next, we'd like to hear from Debra Gillispie. Debra lost her only son to gun violence. And what she did with that was it moved her to start an organization called Mothers Against Gun Violence. She's now teamed up with and is staffed with the Wisconsin Anti-Violence Effort, or also known as WAVE. Thank you for being here, Debra.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I do advocate for a just budget. As Tim said, my name is Debra Gillispie, and as a gun violence survivor and WAVE community organizer, my budget requests to Governor Evers and Lieutenant Governor Barnes are to include funding for community-based gun violence prevention and interruption programs, and create a governor's task force on gun violence prevention that would include those impacted by gun violence. And thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Thank you, Debra. You're quite a wonderful addition to our team. Next, I'd like to invite a dear friend, someone who's helped me in many ways as we try to build unity around the state. Earnestine Moss is the chair of the Committee on Community Coordination for the NAACP Wisconsin State Conference of Branches. Thank you for being here, Earnestine.
Can you unmute her?
I can't unmute her, but I can ask her to unmute. Maybe that'll help. There she goes.
Good morning.
Hi,
And thank
Ernestine.
you. Good morning, and thank you for inviting the NAACP Wisconsin State Conference to this press conference. We appreciate it. And I just want to say that we are in agreement with the just budget that was put forth. I also want to say that I am here on behalf of our state president, President Harris. He had an emergency this morning and has asked me to sit in on his behalf. And we just want to make sure that you know that the NAACP is in support of many of the efforts that have been put on the table from the governor's office. However, we also want the legislature to know that we expect the legislature to govern and be in support of the people of Wisconsin, where the NAACP is an organization that was formed in 1909, and its mission is to secure political, educational, social, and economic equality and rights for all, and to eliminate race-based discrimination, and to ensure the health for all people. So the items that have been put forth illuminates that, and we are in support of it. We're especially in support of those items that ask for equity in health, because we know that the coronavirus affects people of color, especially African Americans, disproportionate than other or the mainstream populations. So it's important for us to make sure that funding coming from the federal government is targeted toward those populations or those counties and districts where you have high population of people of color, because people are dying and we can do better. As Mike McCabe said, I believe in his statements, that the legislature has met only to gavel out minutes later or seconds later. And we are hoping that the legislature will come together, discuss our issues, and act on them. We're particularly concerned about the prisoner pipeline that's going on in Wisconsin for young people. And we are hoping that more attention will be paid to the Constitution section that mandates or require equitable and uniform support for our school districts. So I am also, we're also interested in making sure that something is done about the climates. So I won't try to repeat everything that everyone else has said. I just simply want you to know that the NAACP Wisconsin State Conference of Branches are in support of a just budget, the call for a just budget. And we hope that our legislature will work with our Governor Evers and Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes to do what is best for the citizenry of Wisconsin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Earnestine. While we're on the subject of the NAACP, I know that you kind of referenced the fact that the NAACP is the oldest civil rights, social justice organization in the nation, and I'm proud to be a member, and I encourage you all to support that organization in any way you can. Next on that subject, I want to bring in Professor Eugene Pitchford III. Professor Pitchford teaches at Concordia College in the education department. He is also a lifelong educator that has a passion for social justice. And finally, Eugene is an educational consultant and an author. So please take it away, Professor Pitchford. You're muted, sir.
All righty, sorry about that. So embarrassing being on mute. I think that's like the phrase of 2020. You're muted. So I do it all the time to people. So it's kind of weird that it just actually happened to me. But thank you, Tim, for having me be a part of this group. My name is Eugene Pitchford, and today I'm representing the NAACP Milwaukee chapter, in which our president for the chapter is Clarence Nicholas. My effort in this space today is in the education space. And I'm here to advocate and fight and inform and teach on the unbalanced, unequitable public school budgets that has been in place for a while now, and briefly discuss some of the effects it has on our students. Just being under budget. We all are asked to do more with less. And it takes away from the expertise and the magic that our classroom teachers do. I mean, our teachers are working as hard as anybody else during this time. And without having the proper funding, it doesn't make the job impossible, but it compromises it significantly. And so just having the appropriate resources will be an added boost and an added pickup for all of our public school educators, because we believe our children deserve the best. And right now they're not getting the best from a resource standpoint. From Every Child Succeeds Act, we want to make sure that the supplemental funds is going down the ladder of budget process now. The supplemental funds, we want to make sure that they're being used appropriately and just. And once again, our students deserve the best. So someone might be asking, what are some of the what are some of the specific spaces that we're advocating for a just budget? So we're going to include early childhood, psychologists, counselors, nurses, social workers, our bilingual services and bicultural services. Those are specific areas that are often first to go. And we want to make sure that those wrap around, and those aren't wrap around, but for the space of this conversation, we need to make sure those wraparound services, because they actually support our students, are in place. And now, so then the next space for me is why? Why does it matter now? And so if we were underfunded and we're having trouble supporting kids before COVID-19, so like we could have had this conversation last year at this same date last year, and the same date the year before that. But in this space that we have right now, let me paint a picture. Let me paint a picture for you, and I want you to walk through some shoes of some students. Number one, our students have been significantly impacted by the school to pipeline process. It has to stop immediately. Like, we're just setting kids up for failure. And a budget can support that, to support dismantling that school to pipeline process. Number two, poverty. The poverty has increased since this time last year. Number three, COVID. And as stated before, some other people said it great. The COVID is really impacting what we're doing. And there's going to need a budget to support our students in that process. And so some people say, like, we're in the era of COVID. I prefer to call it COVID unrest, which leads to the social unrest, which leads to the racial unrest. And as you can see, this is not normal times. Like, you're not going to solve this by doing less and supporting less. So hopefully I've laid out a call to action of why it's needed. So we're calling on our governor, Tony Evers. We're calling on our Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, to act swiftly, to act appropriately, so our Wisconsinite students have the best opportunity to really dream, explore, excel in the classroom, and get the education they deserve to become great. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Professor Pitchford. Nicely said. And I want to just toot your horn a bit. Professor Pitchford has been with us since meeting one, has joined the steering committee for helping to draft our educational positions, and he's on the steering committee for the overall coalition, despite his heavy academic demands at Concordia University. So thank you for stepping up in the big way that you have. Also on the steering committee is our next speaker, who's been with us from the beginning too, a longtime union organizer and member with the local UE 1107. Joni Anderson currently is a member of Our Wisconsin Revolution and Citizen Action of Wisconsin, the Driftless Co-op. And as I said, a steering committee member and a leader in this coalition for a just budget. Go ahead, Joni.
Unmute. Thank you. Our state has a lot of pressing issues. Many of them directly affect the workers in our state, such as raising the minimum wage. It has been 11 years since the minimum wage has been raised. Currently, there are 29 states that have a higher minimum wage than what Wisconsin has, above the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, and we are asking for 15. It is no longer enough to respond by saying people are already paying more than what the minimum wage is, so we don't have to address this issue. But rather, when our elected officials are asked to go to work to earn their taxpayer-funded wages and benefits to help fix our unemployment system, and they choose to gavel in and gavel out and continue to play the blame game, it is our people, our workers, that suffer. We're also asking for collective bargaining rights to be restored in Wisconsin in both public and private sectors so that all people have a right to be in a union, so that all workers have a voice in their workplace. And with the pandemic, the way it has been across the country and in our state, people need a voice for safety and protections at work. We are also asking to have a mandated paid sick leave put in place for all workers. And this is important because, you know, if people come in contact with somebody at work who tests positive, or even in their family, they're immediately sent home from work. They're not allowed to stay there, you know. So that goes on to why we need a fully paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Act that's run by the DWD and funded through employee contributions. These are all issues that would help all workers in Wisconsin. We need money for mass transit for those people who are disabled and need a safe way to get to work, or for people who either do not drive or choose not to drive. We need driver's license for immigrants in the state who work hard in the fields and other essential employment opportunities, and they deserve them. You know, they deserve to have their legal driver's license, just like all of us. And they're not asking for any more. They're just asking to be able to drive legally. We need fair hiring practices at all times where discrimination does not happen. And we also need a fair taxation system that works for all workers in Wisconsin instead of just the big corporations, corporate loopholes that companies such as Amazon take advantage of. And since companies like Amazon are expanding in our state, it's time that they pay their fair share. It's time to start building a tax system in Wisconsin that will sustain our workers, not just the elite. And whether it's looking for quality educators or people moving to our state, young people staying in our small towns and rural areas, it is becoming increasingly important provide reliable, high-speed broadband throughout the state and in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni, and thanks for serving on the steering committee and keeping this work going. On that note, I want to call our last speaker, someone who's been involved since the very beginning as well. Reverend Mary K. Baum is a retired Lutheran minister. She's been on the county board, at Dane County Board. She's run for mayor in Madison. She's been a longtime political activist and a dear friend working to build unity around the state. Mary Kay, why don't you close things up for us?
I'll close up by really stressing that unless we look at where the money comes from, how it gets taxed, we're not really looking at the whole budget. I tell the people in the village of Ridgeway, 600 people in our small village, that there's an elephant in the room when they're complaining about property taxes going up. 110 years ago, in 1911, Wisconsin, at the prodding of a former governor, Bob La Follette, and after winning a voter referendum on a margin of better than 2-to-1, Wisconsin approved the first state income tax and actually approved it before we had a federal income tax. It was highly graduated, and the new revenue was meant to be returned to local units of government in order to get away from the property taxes, which was recognized at that time already as being very regressive and not according to ability to pay. Now we have a problem because the way our income tax has been adjusted, especially since 2011, when at the last minute, a major, huge manufacturer's tax credit, it was called. There was really a loophole that allowed some of our wealthiest to pay no income tax or virtually no income tax. And it had a huge impact on our whole state income, reducing it. The schools who had been on a 2/3 funding from the state, kind of in mind with what it was supposed to be originally when we had income taxes first established here 110 years ago, that 2/3 funding basically stopped for the public schools. And municipalities also, who can be pitted against school districts, municipalities are also super dependent on property taxes. In fact, both forms of local government, or all the forms of local government, are more reliant on property taxes than any other state in the Midwest. And we're like number 7 in the country for dependence on property taxes, when we were the first state to pass income taxes so that we wouldn't be dependent on property taxes so much. Anyway, one other side, and I get a lot of this from the budget project and work like Tamarine has done, and to show that we have to look at where our income comes from and make it again, so that people are taxed according to their ability to pay, and that is shared with the local governments. A moral budget considers who pays and who benefits. And right now, it is not just. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. And thank you to all of our speakers. I want to open it up to questions. I don't know if any press made it to our press conference, but certainly they'll get a chance to view it on the People's Media through many different forms. This has been recorded and is streaming live on Facebook, and it will also be posted to other places. And by the way, we are planning to have another press conference on Thursday, the 4th of February. Remember, we are going forth for the people. We're going forth for justice. We're going forth on February 4th at 1:30. So if you want another chance to testify or nominate another person to join this press conference, please let us know. In the chat, I did post some resources. One is our budget calendar, which we're just getting started. So we'll want groups like the Budget Project and the Wisconsin Public Education Network and Wisdom and other groups that are doing great budget promoting, budget promoting work to add to that calendar. We also have the call itself and how you can sign on. Our hope is to have tens of thousands of signatures of average Wisconsinites like you and I signed on. We'll be delivering our first wave of signatures to Governor Evers and then to other representatives, to other leaders around the state, asking everyone to join on to this people's document. This isn't, this isn't like the Declaration of Independence that just a few white men get to sign. This is something that we will allow children to sign. We will allow everyone to sign, and we'll be encouraging everyone to sign. So any questions out there from the audience? Raise your hand or just blurt in if you don't have the ability to push the hand raising button. All right. Well, you've been a great audience. You've mostly been a great set of panelists, and we're really so honored to have all of you on the team. We can grow this every day. More and more groups are signing on, and we really hope to build an uprising. 10 years ago, Wisconsin had 100,000, sometimes 150,000 people stormed our capital. I say stormed, but they did it in a nonviolent way, in a loving way, calling for justice, calling for democracy. And it was a beautiful experience. Well, I think one of the ways we can honor that 10-year uprising is by having a lot of virtual community until we're safe to come together again. We've got to build a virtual community that's calling for justice. And I want to thank all of you for what you're doing. Mary Kay, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I see that Clarence Nicholas has added some words in the chat, and I think they're very important. And he may want to speak to that. If I see that his mute goes off, I'll turn it back to him. But in researching for why we have such inequities in our school districts, I was told to look at the Wisconsin State Constitution, which has been interpreted by court cases to mean that each child should get what they need to function best, to bring out the best in each child, and that the federal act that is now that was signed in 2015 by President Obama requires that the state see that public schools around the state are treated equitably, and that doesn't mean every child gets the same amount of money from the state, which the state isn't doing anyway, but that according to the needs of each child, and that is and poverty is supposed to be taken into account, and English learners, and every aspect of needs. And I understand, probably Eugene could speak to this because he used to be a principal in a school in Milwaukee. Our public schools have not had the resources that they need for this to bring out the best in each child and fulfill what help them fulfill what they can do. So there's we have so far to go in, especially in education, and that overlaps so many of the other areas that we're talking about also. Just wanted to thank Clarence Nicholas for bringing that to our attention. That is required by law across the nation, that the state of Wisconsin is responsible for and find measurements for ways to assure that they are meeting the needs of every single student. I think it goes ages 4 to 20 according to our Constitution, and but now we all understand that from 0 age to 4 is also very, very important for success later on.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you, Mary Kay, and thank you, President Nicholas from the Milwaukee branch of the NAACP for your very important advocacy that we follow our own state constitution that has never been followed to provide equitable education across our state. Well, folks, Don Ferber has just notified me that this didn't actually go live. I failed to hit the right button, but we did record it. So hopefully we'll get this up on Facebook Live. In any event, it's been a very, very good event, and we'll try to get it out as a recorded testimony of our people coming together, and we'll get it Facebooking live next time for sure. It takes a village to make a movement, and some of us need a little more help than others. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to our audience and our panelists alike, and be sure to tune in with the Coalition for a Just Wisconsin Budget. Goodbye, everyone.